Hey everyone, David C. Anderson here coming at you from the Knife Center, and welcome to, I almost said Knife AQ.
It's new knives.
It's new knives.
Let's do this.
All right, we're going to start off this week. A couple new exclusives that have been in the works for a long time. They're finally here, and I'm really excited for them. New versions of the Ontario Rat 1 with Micarta handles and D2 steel blades. Really, really cool how these turned out. And kind of the genesis behind why we asked Ontario to make these for us is there's never really been a Rat folder that really matches the Rat fixed blades that Ontario makes. You know, those blades or those knives have, 1095 carbon steel and Micarta handles, black coating on the blades. So we're like, let's stick with D2, but let's make the Rat folder exactly the same way. And they look fantastic. It's the Rat you know and love, same great handle shape, excellent blade geometry, very thin, slicey, all around, really good. Now, just better, and coming in at about 50 bucks. And while we were at it, we're like, might as well do a satin version too. Both of these guys coming in just under $50 right now. They look fantastic, what can I say? But if you've never experienced a Rat folder before, I think this is the one to go with for sure. Not just because it's our exclusive, but because I think it's the best one yet. It's right up there with a lot of the $50 D2 folders nowadays. You don't have a flipper and you don't have ball bearings, but you've got the much more rugged bronze washers in this particular handle. No nylon or Teflon here. It is the nice metal pieces in there for grit-free action and stability. Now the Micarta is really nice. It doesn't have a super heavy texture to it, but it is kind of a matte finish, so it's kind of raggy, if you know what I'm talking about. And being Micarta, it'll feel a little grippier once it's wet as well. Plenty of length on these handles. I've got slightly larger than average hands and have plenty of room without even choking up onto the ricasso area, which you can do if you want to get some little finer control of that blade itself. But with the performance of that material, this is even better, especially for any kind of hard use or outdoor, working environment, which the Rat has always been really heavily embraced by the outdoors market because of, really the price to quality ratio. And it's just kind of kicked up a notch here. Great EDC if you need a larger knife and you don't want to spend a ton of money. Great, heavier task work knife as well due to the construction. Full non-skeletonized liners, solid backbone, the right kind of pivot construction. I mean, if you've never experienced a Rat before, great place to start, like I said. If you have experienced a Rat before, I don't need to keep going on. You know exactly why these are so awesome. All right, next up we have a new Leatherman. This is the Curl, and it comes in about 80 bucks right now, and it's kind of a blend between the Leatherman Wave, which has been around a number of years now, blended with, I think, the Bond, which was introduced earlier this year. Has a slimmer profile than the Wave. You have 2 outside accessible tools rather than 4. You've got the standard 420 steel blade with one hand opening, and I trimmed my fingernails yesterday, a little too short. I couldn't get that guy out. And a file on the other side. You've got double cut on one side of the file and diamond coating on the other. Both of these lock open with a liner lock, but then flip it over. It's pretty much got the same handle look as the Bond with the addition of a pocket clip, which is kind of nice, although you do also have a standard Leatherman belt sheath. And on the inside, you got your pliers and just a small selection of tools, but it's kind of just a small essential selection of tools. You got your scissors and a flathead on one side, can opener and interchangeable bit driver on the other side. All of the tools on the inside are non-locking at this point. But when they do open up, they are at least in a position where if they do kind of pop closed, the handle is going to keep it from closing the rest of the way. Just a solid, slightly less nonsense tool. Not that there's any Leatherman out there that's, full of nonsense. I don't mean to suggest that. But it's a pretty decent thing. Not too expensive. I mean, it's certainly a little more expensive than some of their things. But if you want the one-hand capability and of the Wave and want more tools than something like a Skeletool can give you, it's actually about the same price as some of the Skeletools out there, and not too much more bulky. So this is one that could potentially take the place of a Skeletool. I don't know, Thomas does carry one every day. What do you think? You haven't looked at one of these yet?
Not yet.
Here it is. What do you think?
Maybe.
Maybe. He says maybe. Maybe we'll leave a moment here for after he looks at it, after this video, he can put a little text up and say yes or no. We'll see. Maybe he'll have fun with that. Maybe he won't. Next up, we got a few, actually several new QSP Penguins, but the two I want to talk about in particular are the copper version and the new titanium frame lock versions. Very cool. More expensive than the standard Penguin, but the standard Penguin, especially with, like this guy here, linen Micarta handles, starts at like 32 bucks. Really, really great working knife. But these guys are a little bit different. I'll start with the copper. This comes in about $52, just under, $51.50 in fact. D2 blade, just like the standard, aggressive sheep's foot shape, pure, non-modified sheep's foot. This is just classic profile with that flat grind. A little bit on the stouter side because this is a kind of heavier duty working knife on the smaller scale of things. Blade here just over 3 inches, but you can still get a lot of work done. The copper feels really nice. You get a little more weight in the handle, although I gotta say it doesn't feel super chunky. I'm kind of impressed that they were able to pull that off with a material like copper here. Deep carry pocket clip, which is reversible. It screws in from the outside, but the clip actually slots inside the handle scale there, which is pretty cool as well. Now, as we were talking about that Ontario, I mentioned the non-ball bearing washer construction in the pivot being good for a working knife. Same thing here. We've got copper washers, but still get a really good kind of flick open with the thumb action. Now, as for the titanium versions, and yes, there are a few different ones in terms of the colorways you can get. This one is, the more blacked out version. These come in about 97 bucks right now. And in addition to being titanium, you also get a 154 cm blade. So you get stainless steel rather than the semi-stainless of that D2. But otherwise, pretty much exactly the same shape to it. Now, if you're going for the heaviest, dudiest knife in the Penguin range, the lock here, you probably might appreciate a little better than the liner lock here. You've got that full frame lock with the lock bar insert as well. The pivots, however, did make a switch to ceramic ball bearings here rather than the full non-bearing washer construction. So it's a little bit of a trade-off in a way. But maybe they were going for a little more premium since this is closer to a $100 knife in this case. And they wanted it to have that ball bearing feel, which, like it or not, is definitely more associated with the higher end of the knife world these days. They did nail the feel pretty nicely. As far as the pocket clip as well, single position and milled titanium in this case. It's not deep carry, you can't swap it around, but you get that cool milled construction as well. All right, next up we've got a new Halfbreed, the medium infantry series, coming in at about $235 right now. Slightly smaller than the full-size infantry knife, coming in with a 5.3 inch blade D2 steel, matched with essentially color matched G10. And you've got the standard 3 colors that they offer here: this green, the dark earth, and the black. That blade length definitely feels a little more controllable for the non-tactically trained folks like myself, and maybe a little more along the lines, if their full-size version of this knife is kind of like the K-Bar Mark II. This is kind of like a little closer to the Mark I, although the Mark I still is a little bit shorter than this, but it's a little more along those lines. Now we've got partial serrations here on the hollow ground main portion, flat ground swedge, and some pretty aggressive grooves up here. Aggressive's the wrong word, pretty wide, I should say. The edges themselves are chamfered over. There's no kind of sharp edges, so that's why I don't say they're aggressive per se. But there is a lot of purchase there, especially if you're wearing gloves. They're still going to be useful for kind of trapping your thumb in place and keeping it from slipping around. The removable G10 scales fill the hand very nicely. You can see there is a lot of thickness for sure. Protruding pommel at the back for your striking capabilities. And nice little touch here at the front. A little bit of thumb scalloping right there to make it easier for the finer control things. Sheath is typical Halfbreed quality. Nice thick pieces of Kydex, Tech-Lock style attachment on the back so you can carry it all kinds of different ways. All right, next up, another hard use fixed blade, the 3V versions of the Cold Steel SRK Survival Rescue Knife, about $145 right now. This is the classic SRK, just with this nice upgraded steel. One of my favorite steels for any kind of knife you're gonna use hard in the outdoors, because you've got a really good amount of toughness, but you haven't sacrificed a whole ton of edge retention as well. A lot of times some of those really tough outdoor steels don't have the edge holding you might like. 3V sits at, in my mind, is just about the perfect cross section between those two traits. And it's gonna stand up really well, especially with the slightly thicker 3/16 thickness here on the blade. 6 inches on that main blade. You've got the straight clip point here. Flat ground rather than hollow ground like the SK5 versions of this knife that are considerably less expensive. And then you've got the full length tang with the overmolded handle. Plenty of texture here. It's going to perform really well in wet environments or cold conditions, as well as giving you some really good shock absorption if you're really beating on this knife or doing, you know, that batoning thing that the survival and bushcraft folks, myself included, like to do so well. And of course, a good finger guard there to keep your finger from slipping forward in the process. As far as the sheath, just like that Halfbreed having a typical Halfbreed sheath, we've got a typical Cold Steel sheath here. Securex material, it's not Kydex, but it clicks in very similarly. Multi-positions here on the side that you could use an aftermarket tech lock if you wanted to carry it that way, or you can just use the standard nylon belt loop here with the retention strap for a little extra peace of mind as you go about your business. All right, next up, we've got a new Medford model in 2 variations, or several variations, but 2 kind of sub-models. We have the Nosferatu Flipper and Nosferatu Automatic. Different blade shapes, very different blade shapes, in fact, but the handle shape is the same on both of these. And I'll start with the Flipper, because I think this one actually impressed me a little bit more. S35 VN blade, 3.5 inches, priced at about $650 right now. And if you've been waiting for that super fidget-friendly button lock flipper with Medford's signature overbuilt style, this is it. Drop shut action there, like you saw that very readily. And the flipping action on these is some of the best I've seen from a Medford yet. It just works incredibly, incredibly well. This particular version, we've got a tumbled blue titanium on the handles, but several different handle and blade color combinations are available right now, including some black coatings. Hollow grind on the thicker blade here to make sure you have a little bit thinner edge so you can still slice even though you do have a thicker blade here. The fluting on the side of the handles gives you a little bit of extra grip, which is appreciated. Very cool looking pocket clip on the back too. Got a nice design to it that kind of echoes the shape of the knife itself. Moving back up to the sheepsfoot style blade here, very utilitarian obviously. Now there's a few milled dimples here on each side, and I thought that might be so you could, you know, do a 2-hand open, but they are a bit covered up when you're down there. Not really going to add too much to the party except for the visual flair. And you get that, you just use the nice flipper. That's what you want to use to open it anyway, because it's really cool. Now, if you prefer something a little more tactical as opposed to a little more utilitarian, go for the Nosferatu Auto, or the Nosferatu, as I'm sure the internet is cheekily calling it already. These guys are priced about $695. S35 VN, 3.5 inches again, but aggressive dagger style, or not necessarily dagger style, but this very aggressive spear point. Hollow ground again, and a very deeply hollow ground swedge going on here. Not deeply as in it comes a long way down the handle, but technically a really tight radius, a really small radius on the hollow grind on the swedge itself, because the back is really thin. Now, of course, you see one of the other color combinations available on this line right now. You do have a secondary safety here, which is going to work both in the open and closed position. So if you're at all worried about depressing that button, probably not a big deal for the way most folks are going to hold it. You're probably not going to be able to put too much pressure on it, but it's good to have that peace of mind, and just the machining on there looks top notch as well. Slide it back, then we can close it, and you can lock it in the closed position. And when you're ready to go, slide it back, push the button, and be very satisfied. Next up is another auto, this one from Microtech, and they're leaning into the Star Wars collaborations that they've been doing with the new Sandtrooper variation of the Exocet. coming in at $329 right now. It has a really awesome weathered look going on. Now, it's very unlike the very clean Stormtrooper version they just made, but if you like sort of the, the more rugged, pre-worn style of look that you see on their bounty hunter variations a lot, this one is more up your alley. Certainly up more up my alley, I think. I kind of like the grunge going on here. On the back, you've still got the nice wide money clip with the Imperial symbol there on the back. The black on here is a little beaten up too. It's not as, it's not that glossy black that we saw in the Stormtrooper versions. And then double-edged blade, serrated on the top edge, plain edge on the bottom, and Microtech action that just is always so very satisfying. All right, next up we have a not automatic. This is the Boker Strike. There are auto versions of this out there, I believe, but this one is not. It comes in about $52.50 right now. We've got a stonewashed D2 blade, about 3.3 inches, and G10 handles. As far as the action, we've got a push button here. Like I said, not an automatic, but you do have a safety switch too to keep that lock from disengaging. Pull it back, and this knife is all about centrifugal wrist motion. It's kind of trapped in place, very similar to the Civivi button lock Elementum, which has been extremely popular lately. You're not going to be able to, even without engaging that secondary lock, this is not going to come out unless you press that button. And there's no thumb studs or anything else, so you're either going to open it with two fingers, or two hands I should say, or you're going to do the wrist flick open. I do like the shape, I gotta say. It's got a nice, very utilitarian tactical vibe to it. I would be really happy carrying this as an EDC. I think that blade shape is great. The finish on it is really nice too. Almost deep carry pocket clip, right side tip up only in this case. So if you want the left hand carry for this style of knife, we do have the button lock Elementums in at this point, but there's some contouring to the handles here, and I just think the shape of this guy is just a bit more exciting for me in particular, and the grip works even a little bit better for me. For the price, the materials are even a little bit nicer, because instead of G10, you've actually got milled aluminum on the handles here, and I love the shape. Just a little bit of contour going on. It's not a flat-sided knife at all. It's just gonna feel great and look great too. One more from Boker, we've got the Omerta dagger, D2 here, just about 4 inches, $54, but it's double-edged, so you've got almost 8 inches of sharpened steel here. This is a Jason Stout design, and it says Stout design on the back, and that works in more ways than one, because not only is it denoting the designer, but it really does describe kind of the burly nature of this otherwise smaller double-edged dagger. G10 for the handle scales, they're bolted on. They feel pretty decent, solid patch there. It's not so much an ergonomic handle, but it is a handle that's going to give you a large control surface in which to manipulate the blade itself. As far as the sheath, we've got Kydex right here, and it does come with one of Boker's, I guess that's actually almost more correct.
Almost.
But we've got one of Boker's modular belt clips here. But if that's not your thing, your typical large tech lock will also work on this style of sheath, thanks to the placement of the holes right there. All right, last up, we've got a few new fire things, basically. I like fire. Do you like fire?
I like the fire.
I'm gonna like this. This is a new accessory from Victorinox, and it's a great way to integrate a fire starting device or fire starting gear into any Swiss Army knife out there with a corkscrew. We have, it's two parts. They call this the Mini Tool FireAnt set. It's $30, and you've got 3 corkscrew attachments here. They thread onto into the inside channel of the corkscrew, and they give you a small fire steel. Not necessarily an everyday fire steel. This is probably more for like emergency uses, but they say each one should be good for about 100 fires, and the tips on all of them glow in the dark too, which is pretty cool. Now, in addition to that, underneath here, we can see tinder that also threads to the inside of the corkscrew, and you thread that on first, and then you can thread the fire steel in right on top of it. So you've got both things right there. So, I've obviously espoused the usage of the corkscrew for things other than opening a bottle of wine, for instance, using it to untie knots. I really like that. But if you've got a Swiss Army knife and you never use the corkscrew for anything else, now there's no reason to complain. You can get some really cool gear in there and always have it on you. You know, it's a great great emergency type of thing. You never have to think about it. If you wind up getting caught out somewhere, you've got something with you. I really like that. On top of that, we've got a new brand here called Procamptek with several different fire-starting tinder products, and I've just picked 2 of them here. They do have, you know, standard like tinder tabs and tinder dust and that sort of thing, but I think these 2 guys are really cool. We've got the Fire Strip Roll, which comes in about $9, and it's a wax-infused paper roll. It's almost like a tape roll. You actually, you know, we don't have it open obviously, but you peel it off the side and you can fluff up the surface to catch a spark. Really cool, very compact as well, I like that. Next up, we have the Fast Fire Stick from them, coming in about $8. And there's a bunch of different ways you can use this. It's packed full of tinder, and you can cut off sections of this and use it that way, you know, fluff things up and, you know, section it into tabs yourself. Part of me really wonders how well this might work as like a tinder bundle, if you needed to like carry, or not a tinder bundle, but if you were trying to carry a small bit of coal with you. Now, I'm not sure if that will work with this. The interior of this might be a little too flammable. I'm not sure. Or I mean, the exterior might be a little too flammable. You definitely want the interior to be flammable. You can feel it. It has a really like slightly oily feel to it. And this is something that should work pretty well, even in some slightly damp conditions. Just 2 of the things that Procamptek puts out that we are now carrying. So we'll leave a link to the whole brand in the description below. And that's all the time we have today, and we're gonna leave links to everything else in the description below if you wanted to get your hands on those as well. But make sure you tell me what you thought of these picks down here in the comments before you head over to KnifeCenter.com. While you're over there, make sure you sign up for our Knife Rewards program so that you can earn some free money to spend on your next knife when you put your money down on one of these knives today. I'm David C. Anderson from the Knife Center, signing off. See you next time.